Nigeria has qualified for the final of the 2023 AFCON Championship. The Eagles defeated South Africa 5-3 on aggregate after a penalty shootout following a 1-1 draw after regulation time. The Super Eagles now wait the winner of the second semi-final match between host nation Côte d'Ivoire and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which comes up on Sunday. And of course, still in the news at this time, we begin also in Nigeria, where in the north-central part of the country, the residents of Suleja in Niger State have taken to the streets to register their displeasure over the high cost of living in the country. Wednesday's protest is coming after a similar protest in Minna, the state capital, just 2 days ago. Suleja, the commercial nerve center of Niger State, is only a few kilometers away from the Federal Capital Territory. An eyewitness said the protesters stormed the popular Morocco market, where the biggest market is located in the town. The protesters carried placards with various inscriptions, as some women and youths in their numbers took to the streets and blocked the Bangungu axis of Minna-Bido Road in the Niger State capital city on Monday, now protesting against hunger and the high cost of living. Nigeria's Senate has postponed its interactive session with the governor of the nation's apex bank, Olayemi Cardoso, to Friday the 9th. This was made known by the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions, as the governor could not attend the planned interface due to being held at the House of Representatives. The chairman of the committee also cited the expected appearance of service chiefs at the Senate as an ardent reason for the postponement.
Our plan for today was to have a session with the CBN governor, and the essence of the meeting, of course, very obvious to all of us, which has to do with the current economic situation in the country. Now, but somehow the CBN governor has been held back in the House of Reps, also trying, of course, on the part of the House of Reps, they also are trying to also do some sort of consultation with him regarding the situation of the economy as well. So that is how come this has been somehow delayed. And the sense is that perhaps they're just rounding up, and we don't know exactly when they will be done, to be frank. And on our part too, we also believe that we should be rational, and in terms of trying to see reasons with both our brothers in the House of Reps and the sisters in the House of Reps, and of course, the CBN governor. And to that extent, it will appear that on our part, we'll have to adjourn ours, and till Friday, the 8th, the 9th of...
Let's move to security matters now, where Nigeria's National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, has called for effective strategies and partnerships to address current insecurity challenges affecting the country. This was during a UK-Nigeria Security and Defense Partnership dialogue in Abuja with representatives of the UK government, where he called for the adoption of practical approaches that will address the root causes of insecurity, ending the menace once and for all.
As we gather here today, ladies and gentlemen, it is incumbent on us to reflect critically on the evolving nature of contemporary security threats and identify innovative strategies and partnerships to effectively address them. Our dialogue must be guided by a shared commitment to promoting regional stability, countering violent extremism, and enhancing resilience against emerging non-traditional security challenges. Moreover, the nexus between security and development remains intrinsic to our collective efforts to foster sustainable peace and prosperity. It is imperative that we adopt a comprehensive and integrated approach that addresses the root causes of insecurity, promotes inclusive economic growth, and empowers marginalized communities to build societies resilient to exploitation and radicalization.
And in this complex period in our history, it demands more from us as countries, but also as friends and partners. And so it's a great privilege for us to support you, Excellency, and the ministers here present, and also President Tinubu as the chair of ECOWAS and Nigeria's leading role in regional security. And we are grateful for your support to us as we try to make our contributions to our own regional and national security. We look forward to using this dialogue, to hearing about and sharing the lessons from your national security work, and to sharing some of the lessons that we have learnt from ours. Every year is different, always there are new things to be trying, and some work, some don't, and we have to learn and adapt.
The Delta State House of Assembly, South Nigeria, has adopted a resolution calling on Governor Sheriff Oborevwori to, as a matter of urgency, act swiftly to halt incessant attacks by herdsmen across various communities, particularly in Uweru and environs. Now, in Ugeli North local government area. Now, News Central's Huston Azu tells us more.
Public worried by the rising spate of insecurity in the state, the House urged Governor Sheriff Oborevwori to direct relevant security agencies to rise up to the challenge. The resolution came following a motion raised under matters of urgent public importance at Tuesday's plenary by the member representing Ugeli North 2 State Constituency, Spencer Owofa. Mr. Owofa noted that the motion had become imperative following a recent attack by suspected herdsmen on residents of Uweru community, where a farmer was murdered by the suspected herdsmen and inflicting injuries on others. The motion, which was seconded by the member representing Ugele North 1, Matthew Omonude, and unanimously adopted after a debate on its merits, asked Governor Oborevwori to compel the State Commissioner of Police and other relevant government agencies to investigate, arrest, and bring to book the herdsmen who invaded Uweru community on Monday, the 5th of February, where one was killed during the annual fishing festival at Umuede Lake. The lawmakers urged President Bola Tinubu to act fast to address worsening insecurity in the country, which has become national embarrassment.
All our farmlands, our forests are being occupied by these dangerous herdsmen. So our people no longer go to farm. There is hunger in our lands. Our people can no longer survive.
For two communities, as of today in Delta State, in Ugele North local government area, to be deserted by foreigners, to be driven away by foreigners, and yet nobody is saying anything. It shows that we are gradually losing our communal life that we are known for. And this is the time for us to wake up.
Today, we all know that my people are farmers. Today, they can no longer embark on the activities they are known for because herdsmen have taken over all their farmland and their bushes.
The speaker, who condoled with the people of Uweru over the attack and loss of an indigent, directed the acting clerk of the House, Otto Agogovia, to convey the House resolution to the state governor, Sheriff Oborevwori, for immediate implementation. In Asaba for News Central, I'm Austin Azu.
In Nigeria's southwest, the Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, has received an official report of the January 16, 2024 explosion at Adeyi Avenue, Old Bodija in Ibadan, the state capital. The report, however, said 3 persons of interest have been identified in connection with the cause of the unfortunate incident, adding that they will face the full wrath of the law based on investigations carried out. It will be recalled that 5 persons died, 77 others sustained injuries, and 55 houses were damaged during the explosion that rocked Aderoniola Street at Adeyi Avenue, Old Bodija, Ibadan. The report, which comprises findings of the medical, security, and also engineering teams, was submitted to Makinde at the Executive Chamber, Governor's Office, Secretariat, Agodi, Ibadan.
So amongst the 3 persons of interest that the investigating team can prosecute now as those people that were in occupation of that house as of the time the incident happened. And based on the findings deducted from their interrogation and the investigation that was carried out. It is still an ongoing process. Some persons of interest weren't there when the incident happened, and they were believed to have fled. The state, and of course, through the necessary mechanism, is going after them. The state is aware that Mali, where majority of these people of interest originated from, has exited ECOWAS, but there is an Interpol protocol under which we can also get assistance to bring them in.
But we do know that when people go through this kind of trauma, they suffer what is called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorders. And a couple of people have come forward with features of PTSD. Some of them with insomnia, inability to sleep. Some of them are unduly irritable. Some of them are very agitated. We've seen marriages of 45 years where the husband is asking the wife what exactly has gone wrong. And the wife is wondering, why has my husband, who has been so loving, suddenly become unapproachable? And some of them have broken down into tears spontaneously. Some have also become depressed, because exhibited features of depression. All of these are clinical features of post-traumatic stress disorders. And we have the clinical psychologist in UCH, led by Mrs. Fumi Olowa, arranging to see all of these people, both by telephone conversation and also visiting them in their various hospitals, various homes, and some in the hotels where they have been lodged. The second disease that has come up of public interest is that some of the residents within and outside of the epicenter have come to the EOC to complain of respiratory problems, difficulty with breathing.
In summary, I want you to know that we've visited 282 houses, and of all the 282 houses, only 4 are actually dangerous and cannot be easily repaired. The rest of the houses can be repaired, and people can move back in to those houses. We have roofs that have problems, glass broken, doors removed, and all of those kind of things. But all those can be repaired. But there are 4 houses that we're looking at and considering for complete demolition.
Nigeria's National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says that it has effected the arrest of 13,364 suspected illicit drug traffickers, leading to the seizure of about 1,606,800 kilograms of banned substances, including several convictions and dislodgement of suspected drug barons since 2021. The chairman of the agency made this known in Abuja during the agency's biennial command awards and commendation exercise, while pledging to consolidate on the gains recorded in the past 3 years. News Central's Marvelous Obomanu tells us more.
According to the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime in Nigeria, 14.3 million Nigerians within the age bracket of 15 and 64 years abuse drugs. While many think that this worrying statistic is one that should bother any right-thinking government, Nigeria's National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says that it has taken the bull by the horns to change the narrative, which has been evident in the last 3 years. The agency, during its biannual Command Award ceremony, commended several personnel that have distinguished themselves in the war against illicit drugs trafficking.
Step forward.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency in the last 3 years has made significant progress. And this progress can be tracked in the number of seizures, arrests, prosecutions, and damaging of large farmlands used in cultivating cannabis sativa. And this wouldn't have happened without the efforts and sacrifices of officers, men and women of the agency, whom today are being honored for their hard work.
We recorded 13,664 arrests, leading to the seizure of 1,606,800 kilograms of assorted illicit drugs and 3,412 convictions, with a total of 5,570 offenders charged to court in 2023. It is indeed a year that at least 15 drug barons bagged 168 years of imprisonment collectively.
The chairman of the agency says that a reduction in the intake of banned drugs is a feat that was achieved in the last 3 years. He says the achievement can be attributed to the agency's advocacy program, which was carried out nationwide.
A total of 2,725 sensitization lectures and programs were held in schools, worship centers, workplaces, and communities, among others.
One of the awardees commended the reward mechanism of the agency, saying it will boost the morale of personnel and encourage hard work.
We thank you, Your Excellency, for identifying the need for the reward for hard work. Having listened to your speech, the quantity and quality of arrests and performance of the officers is enough for celebration.
Shaibu Benam Gaba.
The essence of an award is to work even more hard. It is therefore expected that these officers here who have been honored will show more commitment and doggedness in the fight against illicit drug. It will also serve as an encouragement for other officers to know that indeed honesty and integrity pays. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Away from that, the elderly in Nigeria are the most vulnerable and marginalized group in the country, facing multiple challenges that affect their well-being and also quality of life. Now, gerontologists at the official commissioning of the JSB Gerontorial Center emphasized the importance of improving healthcare for the elderly in the country. Now, News Central's Omolola Ololade tells us more.
According to the United Nations, Nigeria will have about 10.9 million older people in 2020 and will increase to about 14.6 million in 2030. This demographic shift poses new challenges and opportunities for the country as it requires adapting its economic and social systems to meet the needs of its older population. Although the task of caring for the elderly lies primarily on the immediate and extended family, this paradigm shift has necessitated the creation of care homes strictly for senior services like the JBS Gerontology Center to bridge the gap towards providing quality health care for the aged people.
Private foundations, private establishments like this, we're doing our part, we're trying. But what we need is more support from government bodies to, invest in old people, because we're going to come to a point very soon, within the next 20 to 25 years, where we're going to have an explosion of elderly people. So we need to start doing the work now. The government and all private stakeholders need to start investing now for that future.
With the aging population on the rise and Nigeria grappling with the lack of specialized services for older adults, the Lagos State government commended Nigeria's first gerontology center for identifying the solutions to the complexities of caring for the country's old people.
As we start to see more people getting to 80, 90, or even 100, and that demographic profile changing, we as government have recognized this shift and we have integrated the care of the elderly into our 30 general hospitals and our teaching hospital. Well, we also recognize that we have to establish at least one or two of our general hospitals and our primary healthcare platforms to specialize in the care of the elderly.
Worthy of note is the involvement of the private sector in improving healthcare for the elderly population. But more important is the collaboration between the private and public sector for this sector to thrive, according to government officials.
Private sector, by this initiative, she's done this and it's commendable. Then, as you rightly said, the public sector will now say, how do you partner? Because it's not something that an individual can carry as a singular cost. As she's shown, there are people coming from other parts of the country. So clearly means that in every part of the country, there's this kind of need. They might not have individuals like this that can set up on their own. So government must begin to shift and look at applying resources towards geriatric.
The process of aging in Nigeria can sometimes constitute a painful process. Still, experts believe prioritizing the care for the elderly can help the country show its dedication to fostering social progress, intergenerational solidarity, and human dignity. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
The news continues in West Africa, where Mali has reaffirmed its exit without delay from the West African bloc, ECOWAS. Mali said it was not bound by the organization's one-year time frame for withdrawal. Bamako's military government announced its withdrawal from ECOWAS on January 28th, along with neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger. But Article 91 of the bloc's treaty stipulates that member countries remain bound by their obligations for a period of 1 year after notifying their withdrawal. The letter said ECOWAS rendered the treaty inoperative when it failed to meet its obligations by closing member states' borders with Mali in 2022, denying it access to the sea. Joining me on the news to discuss this is a foreign policy expert, of course, Bolu Michael-Biyi. Thank you so much for your time. All right, Bolu, let's start off with Mali's, the junta's reason for the immediate withdrawal. They made reference to the fact that ECOWAS actually placed sanctions on them, and for that reason, ECOWAS, as the first, responder right now, broke the terms or text of the treaty. And for that reason, they are sort of reciprocated. So, looking at this context, would you say that to some extent, maybe Mali or the military junta there might have had a reason, a justifiable reason for their action?
Okay, even though treaties are non-binding, it's just a moral obligation for countries to abide by them. They had a process when they were joining ECOWAS, and they must follow due process when they are leaving as well, because it's very important. It's like, imagine now UK leaving EU and they're saying, okay, they're leaving EU and they didn't follow the due process, have negotiations or not. It's important for them to understand that they cannot exist in silos. The alliance of Sahelian states cannot just be on their own and think they can do whatever. They still need to be on good terms with their neighbors. They still need to be on good terms with their bloc, because their citizens will want to travel, they want to have to trade between countries. We need each other. We are dependent.
But would you want to say that to some extent, or to any extent at all, really matters, given the fact that since the power grab, there has been sanctions placed already, that's by ECOWAS on Mali?
Yeah, the sanctions have been placed, and we see that happening, all over the world, to countries that are part of certain groups. The most important thing is the intention for these things being done. I think one reason that they gave was the closure of the borders and all. But I think any reasonable country that does not want a war or a crisis to spill over to their own country, they can act independently and close their borders. Even Nigeria, there was, at times we close our borders to Benin Republic, even when there's in a time of peace. For economic reasons, a country can close borders anytime. So the fact that there's been sanctions in some way, it has to be commensurate in a way, and leaving aggressively from a bloc doesn't sound like a commensurate or wise move.
Now let's consider the, of course, likely implications, of this withdrawal, not just, on ECOWAS, if at all, this time around, but more importantly, on Mali and its citizens, particularly the business community?
Well, they will still want to trade with the bloc in some way, and when that cannot happen, it will stress this AES state in some way, especially the citizens at once that will suffer, which is quite unfortunate. But over time, they'll realize that they can't just exist on their own that way, and they will need to be on good terms with the bloc. And military governments are very volatile. The person there today might not be there tomorrow. And the three leaders are in coherence right now. Somebody else may come in tomorrow that does not even align with any of the agenda of the AES state and says he wants to go back to ECOWAS. So they really must sit down and ensure that they're not putting their people in jeopardy.
Now, of course, let's talk about, the future of, will I call it ECOWAS right now. Do you think that this particular action by Mali and, of course, the juntas that did same, do you think in any way it waters down the importance and also the influence of ECOWAS?
It's quite embarrassing when countries stand up to ECOWAS, and I think ECOWAS, at times they might be a bit too hasty and they act before going by the rules or checking the articles and treaties sometimes. I don't know why that is happening, because I believe that the experts and policy analysts right there in ECOWAS. So there's been some embarrassing moves, and the best way is to rectify. It's okay to circle back. And I've recommended, on air that ECOWAS should try and negotiate with the leaders and call for elections. Like we saw in Egypt, as Al-Sisi was a military leader, called for elections, and is now a democratic president who seems to be doing fairly. The most important thing is that we have democracy in the country, in the continent, irrespective of wherever it's there. Power must belong to the people, and it's not by sanctioning countries.
Do you think this recent unfolding of events should prompt ECOWAS as an organization to review some of its treaties, its past laws, its constitutions, to sort of suit the current reality?
Yeah, treaties are meant to be living documents or living agreements. For example, if we look at climate change, we had the Paris Agreement, and we've seen improvements on that in different conventions over time. That's what should happen in ECOWAS. It has to reflect the realities of the time politically. I don't think that's happening right now. They need to reevaluate their rules of engagement and ensure as much as possible they are not deviating from the principles for which ECOWAS was founded itself.
Let's move away this time around from Mali. Let's look at Senegal too. And of course, a pivotal factor here is also ECOWAS having to some sort of warn the government of Senegal, not warn per se, but caution them, as regards the recent development there. We saw protests break out after the president did announce the postponement of general elections. And ECOWAS is saying in the interest of democracy, the government might want to tread softly. I would like to know your take on that.
Yeah, I've seen the document or the communique that the ECOWAS released, and I think it's very important for ECOWAS to be kind of mindful of the wording of their communication sometime, and not to be too hardline when dealing with countries that are voluntarily in the bloc. ECOWAS must stop telling countries what to do and respect the territorial integrity of countries, because we're saying that, okay, ECOWAS, that Senegal should go back to their calendar. I think a better approach was for ECOWAS to tell Senegal to do everything within their constitutional power to ensure that there's constitutional order in the country, not expressly telling Senegal to go back to their calendar.
Don't you think some sort of, sorry to use this diplomatic term, a bit of turn for satire, is required, given the fact that we are beginning to see, juntas break out in quite a number of African states, and people are beginning to ask, so what's the relevance of these regional blocs? Like the ECOWAS, for instance, if they cannot to some extent enforce, but just in 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, because it's a voluntary organization and treaties are non-binding. It's just for countries to come together and
All right.
work towards one goal. But it will be. I think it would be better if ECOWAS, admonish and try to be diplomatic as much as possible and tell, the document their communique should tell what they've done. All right,
Okay.
okay, admonish the Senegal leaders to kind of tone down the rhetoric or ensure that there's constitutional order, not especially instructing them on what to do in their countries.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Bolu Michael-Biyi, for, of course, your contribution on the news. Once again, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, a group of Senegalese opposition politicians and their representatives spoke to the press and called for a broad front of stakeholders to come together to get President Macky Sall to back down on the reverse of election postponement. This comes after the election was postponed until December, plunging the country into political chaos. Spokesperson for the new opposition collective says that they are calling on all the nation's leaving forces to join the fight. In East Africa, the main suspect in a deadly gas blast and blaze in the densely populated area of Nairobi that killed 6 persons and injured around 280 has been placed in detention after appearing in court. Derek Kimathi, who police said rented the illegal gas depot where the disaster occurred, was escorted by police to a court in Nairobi, wearing a black burning and face mask. His lawyer has previously said Kimathi would cooperate with the police but denied he was operating the site when the blast took place as a gas filling plant. Now, Kenya's Directorate of Criminal Investigations had announced the arrest of Kimathi along with 3 officials from the National Environmental Management Agency who are accused of culpability over the tragedy.
They will be held for the 21 days that applicant has applied for. All the respondents herein will have this matter mentioned before this court on the 20th.
And that's a wrap on the news at this time. But before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Super Eagles of Nigeria defeat South Africa to reach AFCON 2023 final. Oppositions in Senegal have called for broad front to reverse delay in election. And finally, we told you the Prime Minister in Kenya, the prime suspect in Kenya gas explosion, has been placed in detention. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dakwo Adigboyi.